let the adventure begin. So right now it is Friday, 5:40 p.m. A little bit later than I expected to actually leave, but circumstances happened there. Ran into a little bit of a problem setting up my automatic feeder for the fish. Obviously don't want the pets to die in the few days I'm out of town. But I am all packed up and good to go. You can kind of see a general idea. It's more of a hodgepodge of how I actually have everything put together at the moment. I'm probably going to make some major adjustments to where I'm actually putting things to as I actually live in my car for the next few days. So hopefully this all goes well, but I'm getting on the road now and wish me luck. Alright, so I'm going to try to do a little bit more recording, taking pictures, and all the normal things that I usually delegate to other people, but since I don't have other people on this trip here, I don't really have much of a choice but to kind of document things myself for once. So I really want to take this to, at least to the level of being able to really catch the most important parts about the trip and the destinations that I end up going to, places I stop, anything interesting on the way. So I guess to start everything here, I don't know if it's the prologue or epilogue. I think prologue is before the real story and epilogue is after, but I'm going to call it the prologue. So this is the prologue video. So the premise for this trip and my goals is basically to go that way, north. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm on 75, getting close to Lake City at the moment. So really have not covered any ground yet at all. The trip has just started. Right now, I think my main goal is to really just at least put enough distance between myself and home to find interesting things to do that would normally just be out of my distance of driving that I would do. I'm thinking that somewhere 2 to 4 hours at least of driving, or unless I just see something interesting, after 2 hours, I might just consider it then. I don't know. Yes, I'm rambling, and I plan on rambling quite a bit on these videos, so deal with it. So right now I'm working on just heading north. I want to at least, I think, make it to North Georgia tonight, but before I call it a day as far as the driving goes. I think that's pretty reasonable to do. I mean, my overall total distance to Washington DC, which is my tentative final destination for the trip, is about 12 hours. So we'll see if how long I actually take to drive that and what stops I make on the way. I'm not running any navigation software right now whatsoever, so I don't actually have a destination that I'm going to at this current time. I am simply driving in a north direction and just gonna pay attention to signs and stuff on the way as I drive and see if there's an exit worth getting off at, or a stop or something interesting to see. Not a whole lot of daylight left in the day today. I think I've got about another 2.5 hours of daylight. So I think that's going to put me at about mid-Georgia, pretty close to it. I'm thinking like Valdosta area. So we'll kind of see what things look like then. It'll be nice when it's night out and it's cooler. So far, the biggest challenge of this trip has actually been loading up the car in the damn heat. I'm just basically sweating from head to toe and just going through and loading a few items in the car in the last hour or so, just because it's in the high 90s and high humidity. So looking forward to it being darker out at nighttime driving, so maybe put the windows down and enjoy some fresh air instead of air conditioning. And of course, when I actually, the further north I go, the cooler it gets. Check the weather report, and it is apparently actually getting down to the mid to high 50s even some nights in the Washington DC area. So really looking forward to getting a little bit of pre-winter in. It won't be winter in Florida for at least another 2 months, and even then it's still kind of winter, because I think we'll usually end up getting into the 80s and even sometimes low 90s still in December. So still several months before the temperature really comes down at home. So that's one of the biggest advantages of doing this trip north now. It's the first week of October 2019, and so So it's just now like starting to get cooler, leaves turning and all that stuff up north that we don't get in Florida. So it seemed like the perfect time to go through and schedule this type of a trip. This is my first time ever doing a boondocking or a car camping or stealth camping, or there's so many different terms that people use for it. Hashtag van life. Although I'm in an SUV, so I'm not really doing the van life thing, and I could never see feasibly spending probably more than the length of what I'm doing for this trip with nothing but my car. I have a pretty decent setup. It's simple. I wish I could take credit for a lot of the ideas of the things that I have set up, but they are mainly actually sniped from videos I've seen on YouTube of other people doing similar things, and just some general research I've been doing into car camping, boondocking, whatever you want to call it. I'd say I probably have to decide what I want to call it on this trip. I think I'm just going to go with this coolest name, and that is stealth camping. Just because it has the word stealth, and that's ninja, of course. So the general premise of that is to be, sleeping in a car in an area where you may not necessarily be supposed to be, camping out or sleeping. Some states have laws just directly against it. Some states actually have removed those laws. The general idea of stealth camping is to be able to travel to a place, sleep in the car in such a way that no one around you actually is really even aware that it's happening. The goal is to not be a giveaway at all that there's someone actually in the vehicle overnight. It's supposed to just look like a parked car. So that's why I am, kind of mainly sticking to the idea of using my SUV for that. Is RVs and other larger vehicles, even the vans that I see people using, they do a fantastic job of blocking out the windows, preventing light from getting out, so that it's not really noticeable. But no matter what, it's still a big vehicle that is sitting kind of inconspicuously in a place, and I think at least me just kind of knowing about stealth camping and how people do this now, I think I could probably spot them very easily. So my goal is to actually take it a step further as far as at least the stealth goes, and really make it so that I am completely just unnoticeable. I just look like a regular vehicle that is parked. Now, I don't have a perfect setup for all of that quite yet. I have pretty decent tinting on my side windows, as well as the back window. The front windows and the front, obviously I don't have any kind of tinting on any of this area here. So when it comes to the windshield at the front, I have some sun covers that I always put up there, which looks just normal. A car with sun covers over it isn't anything special. But I'm not so the biggest kind of visible, easy to see area of the car is going to be the side windows on the front, which have no tinting to them whatsoever. So my way of kind of just mitigating that, you can probably just see it just slightly up in the corner right about here. That is actually some bungee cords that I have strapped to the back there. I've got a couple of spares in the back as well here, so I can just kind of move them around and do a few things that's necessary. But this, I put them up in the oh shit handles, linking them together with some bungee cords going across. And then I have this large blanket that is that really doesn't allow any light through it all. It's pretty thin and not very heavyweight at all, but it's the material on it is at least thick enough that it blocks light. So what I have actually tested out, theoretically tested out, is actually hanging that over the bungee cord strap here, and then kind of draped over these front seats, segregating the whole front cab area from the back. So with that in place, actually, you really can't see anything into the back at all. And if it's dark enough out, because it is a dark brown blanket, it just looks like you can't see anything, and it's just too dark to actually really see. So it's actually kind of hard to tell even that it's something hanging there, and not just simply a perspective of it just being so dark that you can't see anything. So that's my goal of kind of blocking out the front. The back, I'm hoping that the tinting is just enough that when it's dark, you can't see in the vehicle. I mean, the biggest thing, and everybody that does this is always paranoid about, is someone coming up and looking into the vehicle. And if someone were to go through and do that to me in my vehicle, even on the tinted windows, even with no lights on inside whatsoever, you can still kind of see in, even in a pretty dark area. So it is not perfect, but at a distance of even a couple of feet, you can't see anything from in the vehicle at all. So it would really have to take someone taking Creeper to a new level, really coming right up to my vehicle to notice that I'm actually inside and stealth camping in the vehicle. So I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do about all that yet. As far as my backs, the set of windows that is right here that has the tinting on it, I do have a set of mesh window screens. That's actually a pretty interesting concept. It goes over the entire door, covering the windows up, and so there ends up being a mesh cloth screen on the inside and outside covering the window. You can still actually roll the window up and down with that, so it also has some additional advantages beyond just light blocking, in that I can actually roll down the window and get some airflow. So if it's a pretty cool night, like it's supposed to be tonight and most other nights, that's probably what I'm going to end up doing to kind of stay cool and comfortable in the vehicle when I sleep. I have a little USB fan that what I've done in the past is roll the window up most of the way, but have just enough space to be able to put this USB fan and kind of wedge that between the window and where the window actually closes. So I think I'll be able to go through and do that inside of that screen. So I have a fan blowing cool air from the outside into the vehicle, and that is not going to be blowing in bugs or anything like that because of the screen. And it doesn't look like an open window or anything because it is a black mesh material. Another purpose for those as well is that it kind of enhances the blocking on the side windows. It's a dark mesh material combined with the tinting on the windows themselves, make it so that it's virtually see-through. I mean, it basically turns it to the level of the highest tinting you can probably get for a window. So I feel pretty good about the side windows with that. So my main concerns are the far back window for the hatchback, as well as my little side windows. So for that, what I've actually done is I purchased some Reflectix material, which I have cut out. And one thing that I see a lot of people do is they'll get the Reflectix material and they'll cut it out to the shape of the window, and then they just kind of wedge it into the spots in the window. And my concern about that being is that when you're wedging something like that in there, I think it eventually is going to damage it, so you have to make new ones, or it's not going to function as well. And I'm also concerned that it's not going to do as good of a job of blocking, just kind of have it wedged into a space. So that's one thing I did a little bit differently compared to what I've seen most people do, in that I've actually taken some sticky Velcro strips, and I've actually put a strip at the top and at the bottom of the windows, and then have solid pieces of the Reflectix material that I've cut mostly to size, with a little bit of overhang. And that overhang is where the Velcro strip's actually attached to on the Reflectix. So I basically just take the Reflectix cutouts that I've made. They're just normally folded up in the car. They're in the back right now. Unfold them and use the Velcro spots as a guider to tell me where to actually put it. Just wedge it up in the window. And that completely 100% blocks the hatchback window as well as my little side windows. Now the problem with that, though, is that the Reflectix material is a bright reflective silver, so it is very, very noticeable and obvious if you're going through and actually looking at the vehicle, even at a distance, to see that. So I'm going to try to not use those and just be a little bit smart about my parking location instead. But I do have that as an option, and that is also something that helps to mitigate cold. Some of these trips I plan on doing in the future, as I plan on going up to areas where it's going to be significantly colder than what I get in Florida. I mean, I'm talking about down in the probably 30s and 40s, maybe lower than that, because I do want to do some trip where I go see snow at some point. So when it comes to that, it becomes a matter of staying warm, and especially sleeping in a vehicle like this here. I don't know or currently do not have a solution for heat. And it's honestly something I'm kind of concerned about in doing that type of a trip, is I don't really know what I'm going to do for a source of heat, because there's all kinds of concerns with portable heaters, more obvious concerns about starting fires and things like that, but there's also more subtle concerns too about some of them have carbon monoxide warnings, so it can fill the vehicle with carbon monoxide, and some of them you have to actually have some type of ventilation, which in a vehicle like this where I have very little insulation I'm working with as it is, even a cracked window or something is going to leak a ton of heat out of the vehicle. So my goal is to find some way to be able to stay warm but keep the vehicle completely sealed, so I don't really have any kind of heat that's just leaking out or anything at all. So the Reflectix is going to play a role for that. For something like that is probably where I'll end up doing a little bit more material and actually doing Reflectix for these front and side windows as well. But we'll see about all that. It's kind of going to depend on what my testing for all that really yields, and as far as what I feel is necessary for all this. Fortunately, Reflectix material is cheap. I got a huge roll. I think it is 5 foot by 10 foot, something like that, for $20. And looking at the material, I wasn't 100% sure what it was. I really went on a blind recommendation of what everybody from YouTube that does this is doing, and it's effectively 2 layers of bubble wrap with a heat shielding material, like an emergency blanket type material on the sides. So it's pretty interesting, real simple material, but I really think that it's going to be pretty helpful for a few different projects related to the car camping here. So I kind of went on a tangent a little bit about my setup and all this, but this is kind of a test trip, which is why I'm talking about it. I've gone through and done a little bit of stealth camping, technically twice now. I went to a campground once where it didn't matter if I was stealth camping or not. I was allowed to be there. I set up and slept in my car, and everybody else that was there, they ended up sleeping in tents and things like that. And I just did this as a basic test to see if it would work out, and it was absolutely fantastic. I was just laughing the next day as people were going through and having to close down their tents and pack up camp, and all I had to do was shut the doors to my vehicle, and I was good to go, because my vehicle is my spot to sleep with all of my stuff. Biggest challenge I ran into with that trip is that I brought far more things than I needed to, and I kind of did that on purpose because I wanted to know, how unwieldy it would be to be in the vehicle and trying to sleep in it with just a fully loaded vehicle. So, if I were doing a really extended trip, I needed to bring a lot of gear with me and a lot of supplies. Like if I was going out into somewhere in the desert or maybe out in the Midwest or something, and sometimes getting things like even food and water may be a little bit challenging. It might be a long way in between, or if I want to stay at a particular spot that doesn't have access to facilities very easily, I could need to actually bring that much gear with me at some point. So that was what that test was for, was just to kind of be completely overloaded with stuff everywhere in the car and to be able to see if I could still sleep in it and be comfortable. And it really wasn't a problem. The problem was doing everything but sleeping. It was just a pain to try to find everything. And I really take to heart now some of the advice that some people have said on this about everything in its place and a place for everything. You cannot get disorganized in this whatsoever. When you're done using something, you need to put it back exactly where it came from. Need to keep things, in the general area where they were supposed to be. Because I remember going through and losing one of my main battery packs that I needed for charging my phone and some of my other devices. It turned out that I just put it on the back of the seat and didn't realize it, and it fell on the floor. But I grabbed it from the spot it was supposed to be in, didn't put it back there, and being in a small spot and trying to stealth camp, it makes it very difficult to find something, because one, I don't want to turn on lights and give away my position. Two, I don't want to have to get out of the vehicle, especially in bad weather conditions or something like that. I could be stuck in the vehicle for a longer extended period of time than what I planned for. And so it'd make it very difficult to go through and really enjoy myself and not feel like I'm cooped up if I'm not constantly searching for things that I'm losing, as I'm just trying to be in the vehicle and live. So yeah, I went through and did that kind of a test, and I've reorganized and kind of cut down on the number of things that I need quite a bit. We still have a lot of work as far as organization goes. This is just mainly a hodgepodge of things put together right now because I don't have an official spot for things, but that's part of what I'm hoping to accomplish for this trip, is to work out a lot of that. I also did a very simple stealth camping on my trip down to Tampa recently, and in that I just ended up sleeping in my car in the back of a Walmart parking lot. I found a really good spot where I could back my car all the way up to this bush, and made it so that there was basically you could not look into the back window whatsoever because you couldn't get to it. And it was in a dark area of the parking lot. It was still next to a few other vehicles, so it didn't look like it was just a vehicle that was out by itself, or I didn't draw any attention to myself, and slept there overnight and was quite comfortable. What was especially impressive about that was how well my little camp portable AC cooler works. That's something that's going to be a topic all in itself that I will talk about, but that night it did not dip below 88 degrees, and yet sealed up in my car completely, windows up and everything, running my little car cooler, I was able to actually stay comfortable enough to sleep throughout the night. So that was a pretty successful trip, and that was a real simple trip there. That was just simply one night. I was down there visiting family and went to an event, and so I rather than driving home that day or a hotel room or staying in a friend's place, I figured that would be a kind of a good first test of actually trying to do the stealth camping in an urban area, and that went without a hitch. I had no issues with it whatsoever. So it was actually kind of funny. I woke up the next day and there was a minivan parked about 3 or 4 spots away from me, and the guy was there shaving in his in the mirror from the sunblocker that he pulled down, and just I could see that he had a little bit of a setup too, and it was obvious that he spent the night in the Walmart parking lot too. Probably had no idea I was there. I had no idea he was there, and we kind of exchanged a quick glance. We're like, yep, we know what's going on. So I thought that was a pretty interesting experience there. But this is going to be my first ever trip too far away to just be able to turn around and go home on a whim. I mean, I'm going to be hours from home on this trip, and that is the goal, is to put myself in a situation where I really am doing this for real. And no doubt I'm going to run into problems on the way, things I didn't see coming, or I maybe forgot to bring something, or simply didn't account for something and I needed a piece of gear for, who knows? I have absolutely no idea. And that's the point on this, is to figure out all those kind of things so that I can do this in the future and worry less about the details about the trip and worry more about having fun on the trip. So hoping to have a lot of fun on this trip here. I'm hoping everything goes well. I'm expecting things to not go well, to kind of break and to be a little bit of at least a pain at some times, but we'll see. So yeah, this was the prologue. Many other videos to come as far as this whole trip goes, and as I find interesting things here, I will try to document as best as possible. Wish me luck.